I'll say this, I'm glad that I finished this show after the YouTube rap came out, because if I finished it before the music rap came out, that shit would be cooked. I don't know how I would explain to people that Gravity and Brighter would be in the list somewhere. I don't know what I would do.
At the end of the rainbow, there's happiness.
Hazbin Hotel is an indie animated series created by Vivy Madrano, aka Vivy Pop, aka Spindlehorse, aka the person who made the Dayoung video, which is deleted, and I don't know why it's deleted. She's an artist who made a big name for herself solely from her artwork and her original characters. Artists who can build communities or fan bases around the original stories have always existed, and they still do. But she's kind of one of the first people I think of where, like, she really got super big just doing art, like, in the 2010s. Like, that is explicitly what people know her for, is her short films and her characters and her art. And that's something that I think, like, a lot of artists are achieving now still, which is really cool to see. But a lot of artists, especially myself, aspire to. She really hit her stride in the 2010s, and we have to give her that, right? She also grew a huge fan base and a following, and I will admit to you, I used to be a part of that fan base. I stopped being a fan like in 2017 or something because something happened. We're not really going to talk about that. This is not the point of the video. I'm not going to bring up old shit she did like 10 years ago. We're just talking about the work, the art. I wasn't like a super big fan, like a super hardcore fan, but I did watch her speed paints a lot, and I did like her characters, so that was where I was at. I wasn't really like keeping up with the lore. I wasn't watching all the streams. I just copied her art style. People clown on Vivy's art all the time, and while I do think that a lot of it is based in genuine criticism, I think people tend to overlook her strengths as an artist. She's great at creating distinct and diverse character designs, despite her reliance on her artistic crutches. This is evident in her sketches and full pieces. She has a great sense of shape, flow. She's able to convey so much to the viewer just through body language. One of my favorite pieces of hers is this picture that she drew. It's this fully rendered piece of Charlie encouraging a teenage sinner to dance. It's so simple, yet you can glean so much just from this single image. It shows how caring and kind Charlie truly can be towards people, even strangers. Who is this character, and why does Charlie want her to dance? Did this character used to dance in her previous life on Earth? Was it a passion of hers that Charlie wanted to rekindle? I can already see an entire scene in my head where this unnamed teen character dances with Charlie and learns to open up to her. In my opinion, Vivy works best in this format, where she has a singular, strong idea and conveys it through her art. Even the things that people tend to zero in on, like the garish colors and all the seemingly unnecessary details and patterns, works best in this format because it's just one image. It's not a moving image. It's just one image that you can stare at and like gaze at all of the details and the coloring and stuff. Throughout the years, she had been developing several worlds populated with a shitload of characters, but Hazbin Hotel became the most popular, and over time, this led to her gathering the funds and resources to develop a full pilot. I think by the time the pilot dropped, I had already kind of grown out of Vivy Pop. Like, I remember keeping up with the production of it. I remember being very excited, but by the time it came out in like 2018, 2019, I was fully done with it. I had fully moved on. And I was in high school. I was a freshman in high school. The only person I knew who was still in the Hazbin Hotel was someone in my same grade who was younger than me. I was like 15, they were 13 years old. That should probably tell you everything you need to know. That's why when the pilot actually got picked up by A24 and was getting a fully fledged TV show, I wasn't that interested. While this was a huge win for the animation industry and set the groundwork for indie animation for the next few years to come, it wasn't something I was necessarily excited for. And once that show came out, I was less inclined to watch it, let's just say that. To be fair, Hazbin Hotel has garnered an even bigger fan base than it did back in the day. The show is one of the most successful cartoons on Amazon. The music has charted each time a season drops. Conventions are just flooded with Hazbin cosplayers. Like, I remember going to MetroCon like in 2024. Half of the people there were dressed as Hazbin characters. Full stop. It was crazy. I was a little surprised to see so many of them. This show is a huge deal and has become something that means a lot to many people, whether you like it or not. But with anything that becomes universally loved, it also becomes universally hated. It feels redundant to even make a video about this show because everyone and their mom has made a video about it, and everyone's made a video shredding it to pieces and pointing out everything and making fun of it. And honestly, I was not planning on making a video about this show, even though I did watch season 1. I think I watched it at the end of 2024, so I had waited the whole year to watch it with a friend. I had a lot to say about it, but I wasn't inclined to make a video because honestly, everyone else has made a video about it, so I wasn't like, I just wasn't interested to. But then me and my friend watched season 2, and that was the one that lit a fire under my ass. I had to say something. So yeah, that's the reason why I'm making this video. It's because there's a big blue square-shaped elephant in the room. I want to make a disclaimer. This is not a Vivy Pop hate video. I said it earlier. The purpose of this video is not to talk about her controversies or anything she has or may have done allegedly. I'm not saying it to defend her or necessarily shield her from criticism. I just don't really care to talk about her as a person unless it's related to the show. Like, that is just me. I'm just here to critique the show. This is also not an attack on the staff, the voice actors, the crew. This is not an attack on her fans. You're allowed to like the show. I actually don't care if people like the show. Like, at this point, there are so many things to be mad about in the world right now. Someone liking Hazbin Hotel is the least of my concerns. I truly do not care. If you're coming in here thinking I'm just gonna be a hater, which I am, understand it comes from a place of care and love. I'm not just doing it just to pick on her. I'm not gonna do the song and dance of like, oh, shitty Tumblr OCs and making fun of her for having dyed hair. Like, that is not, we don't do that here. We don't condone sexism here. Before I talk about season 2, because that's the reason why I'm here, or even talk about season 1, I gotta talk about the pilot, because that's where it all starts. I've seen some fans reminiscing on the original pilot for this show, lamenting about what could have been and how we were so robbed. And while I do understand those feelings, I do think people are viewing it through rose-tinted glasses a little bit. A good chunk of the Vivy Pop isms, the if blank was written by Vivy Pop things, are still very present in this pilot. Like the over-designed characters, the over-designed backgrounds, several characters getting introduced that don't serve an immediate purpose. The humor. That being said, now that I'm rewatching it with hindsight, there is actually a lot to appreciate about this pilot. Instead of it being like a tech demo or just like a random episode from a pitch bible, it's the prologue. It sets everything up that's going to happen in the main story. The main plot revolves around Charlie, the daughter of Lucifer from the Bible. Every year, heaven sends their army to execute sinners in hell due to overpopulation. This still confuses me because why would an abstract place with no borders suffer from overpopulation? That's fucking stupid. So Charlie comes up with a more humane solution. Instead of condemning sinners to a life of suffering and death, how about we open up a rehab center called the Happy Hotel that can rehabilitate and possibly redeem sinners. Oh, by the way, a sinner is a human who dies and goes to hell. That's what they are. I typed this and I forgot to explain that. There's going to be a lot of explaining I'm going to have to do throughout this video. The pilot does a good job of establishing the origin of the hotel, but to be honest, it also does a good job of showing how terrible the exterminations are. Like, we have to remember, this is genocide. And after thousands of souls are killed, it leaves hell in this free-for-all frenzy. It also helps that the pilot has this very dark art style. It's more grittier. It kind of reminds me of like Joan and Vasquez or that show Growing Up Creepy, if anyone remembers that. I fuck with that show heavy. The visuals are honestly so charming to me, even if it's a little rough. And you kind of tell when a different person is animating a specific character, and it's a little jarring, but that's fine. Because it's charming. It's fine. I like Charlie in this pilot. I feel like the whole Disney Princess in Hell shtick works the best in this version of the story. Obviously, what she's trying to do is very outlandish and dumb and misguided, but you somehow still root for her. Her childlike idea of what heaven could be is a lot more endearing here, because it's not just about redeeming sinners, it's also about promising them a happier life once they've reached redemption. Charlie's idea gets laughed at, which makes sense. People who have done shitty things, have been condemned to hell, and can't see themselves ever getting better aren't going to bother joining the hotel. With Charlie's mother Lilith gone, and Lucifer also being implied to not be supportive of her dream, the pilot sets up Charlie as the underdog. I like Charlie and Baggy's dynamic a lot. In the show, Charlie is a very frantic anxiety ball, and Baggy is usually there to ground her. But in the pilot, it's kind of flipped. It's the other way around. Baggy is a lot more flighty and ill-tempered, which gets toned down a bit in the show. I'm assuming they wanted to avoid making her too much of a spicy Latina stereotype, even though she kind of is anyways. Baggy is still very much a skeptic in the show, but I prefer this pilot dynamic where Charlie is the one who suits her girlfriend. It kind of makes her optimism feel a bit more like it comes from a place of knowledge and trust, and not just Charlie being stupid and naive. I also like Angel Dust in this pilot. I think what I appreciate a lot that the pilot focuses on is that he's kind of a dick. Like, he's a dick in the show, but I think the problem is that the show focuses too much on his hypersexuality, which is a part of him, but it's not the only part. The pilot also highlights that he has a lot of self-destructive behavior that can harm himself and others, and he doesn't really seem to care. There's a scene where he basically says that if he goes clean off drugs, he's gonna seem like he's gone soft, which is something the show tries to say, but it's actually really funny that this one line concisely handles it way more effectively. There's more of an emphasis on how emotionally distant Angel can be. We get a good sense of his and Baggy's flaws, which makes them more compelling to me, because the whole point of the show is that we're following a bunch of shitty people in hell, so these characters should have flaws that makes them seem like they are hard people to get along with. But the real star of the pilot, the Tumblr sexy man golden boy, Alastor.
Hello! Oh. May I speak now?
He is so much fun in this pilot. Edward Bosco does a great performance. His animation is so fluid and fun. And honestly, I just like how his personality is portrayed here. I like it way more than the show. He has this old-timey transatlantic cadence. Even the way he talks, it does sound like they're actually making more of an effort to make him sound like he literally got ripped out of the 30s. Like, he died in the 30s, so he's just kind of stuck in that time period.
Why, I haven't been that entertained since the stock market crash of 1929. So many orphans.
The sound effects are funny. Like, I don't know. His energy is very infectious. What I like about Pilot Alastor is that you can truly never tell what this character is thinking. He acts like a cartoon within a cartoon. It almost feels like someone trying to mimic human behavior. Even when characters don't act nice to him, he doesn't show annoyance or irritation. In fact, he's oddly patient and treats others as if he finds them humorous. You only see him treat characters like Baggy differently, but even then it's very subtle. It's very methodical. Good character, no notes. Even in the pilot, Alastor is already set up to be a bit of an antagonist. Baggy explains that he's a powerful overlord in hell who has killed several other overlords, which low-key still doesn't make any sense. I don't know how that works. Alastor wants to help Charlie with her hotel, and Baggy immediately warns her not to agree to whatever bullshit he is trying to push onto her. He's a deal maker, and he's really scary and it's spooky. He doesn't even think the hotel will succeed, he just wants to see what happens. Charlie is also skeptical, but she agrees to let him help, and thus the Hazbin Hotel is born. What a stupid name. The pilot's fun. It's not perfect, but I think in hindsight it does a much better job at setting up the story for what's to come. It was also really fucking successful. And then a half year later, it got picked up by A24 to become a full-fledged show. I took off my jacket because I got sweaty. Hazbin Hotel Season 1 was announced to come out in 2023. And funnily enough, all of Season 1 had been completed and was ready to come out. But there was just one issue. The show needed a distributor, so it had to be delayed into next year. Luckily, Amazon came in to not only put it on their platform, but even greenlight several more seasons. No matter my opinion on the show, the reality of having your project basically be guaranteed a future is really cool. Like, even now, it's kind of a miracle that this even happened. The fully realized vision of over a decade of work, maybe even longer, I would say like 15 years, because she's had some of these characters since she was literally a child. All that effort, all that work, all that lore, all of it could finally be paid off and be enjoyed by the general public. And the reception it was really successful. It still is successful, and everybody loves it. So I can't deny that, and it makes a lot of money. But there were already a couple of roadblocks that the team had to hop over. There were already problems. I think they've said that they wanted to do like 10 to 20 something episodes, and A24 only had the budget for 8. People blame Amazon for this, but this seems to actually be an A24 issue due to them lacking the budget. So the team had to make the hard decision of whether they were going to tell a smaller story and just kind of hope that their thing will get picked up for more seasons, or they will shove everything into season 1 and just hope for the best. Basically, they tried to make it a contained story while doing as much as they could in case the show just didn't get picked up for another season. And I need to reiterate again, this is one of Amazon's most successful shows, not just successful cartoons, most successful show, period. This is a huge win for animation, a huge win for indie animation, a huge win for musicals, a huge win for Viv and her team and her fan base who have stuck around since the beginning. But as I was watching it with my friend, I'm saying this as somebody who wasn't even like that deep into Vivy Pop shit anymore. Like, I had fully grown out of it by the time I watched it back in 2024. I was out of it. I did not care, but I watched it out of curiosity because I wanted to give it a chance. I had this feeling that something changed, like, between the pilot and this. Even to people who like the pilot, something felt off about the realized vision for the story, and it would become increasingly clear as to why. Okay, so let's get some shit out the way. So much has drastically changed from the pilot, which is fine. I want to make it clear that changes aren't inherently bad because pilots are never meant to really be the final product. They are supposed to represent what the show could be, but ultimately it's not supposed to represent the final product. Things from designs to plot elements to characterization, so much can change from the pilot to the main show. For example, the show went through a massive design overhaul. I think this was for the better, but there are a lot of things that I take issue with and have nitpicks on. They clearly wanted to make the designs less cluttered and more polished and give them better contrast. Like, that's the thing you have to remember. These are the animation-friendly designs. Charlie's design is good. I do miss how round she used to be. I wanted her to be round. I like that she was kind of round like a cloud, and now she's angular like everybody else. Baggy was kind of a flop, I'm not gonna lie. I don't like that they made her wear more pink. I just think her pilot design is the best design she's ever had. She's had so many designs over the years. This design in the pilot is like peak baggy to me. I wish they kept it. Doubling down on the pink was just such a weird choice, especially because another thing that I took issue with was how bright the show is. The original pilot had a lot of interesting and dynamic lighting. The inside of the hotel was very dark and gritty. I wish they had more of this like dramatic lighting in the show. I think season 2 kind of plays around with the contrast way more, so good on them. But season 1 is very like, anytime there's a group shot and they're in that fuck ass hotel, my eyes just glaze over. It's just so much. I do appreciate the tweaks made to certain designs. I think Vox came out one of the better ones. I do mourn his old design, but honestly, I don't know how much I could take of seeing his face constantly wigging out. I think toning down his facial expressions was a much better move to make him look a bit more friendly, generally, as friendly as a Vivy Pop character can look. I like Velvet's new design. Well, I don't really care for the main design in season 1, but I like her redesigns in season 2 where she has all these outfits. I think her pilot design is very It's very like goth Lolita. I don't really care for it. I just have like nitpicks about it too, which I think is just more so with how polished the animation has become. Cause like, I miss how Alastor was so squash and stretchy and how he moved, and he doesn't move like that in the show. His facial proportions are kind of slightly different too. I don't know.
I will say it does depend on who's animating him, honestly, because there are some scenes where I'm like, okay, I like how he looks in this, but then there's others where I'm just like, this feels really off. Like, I will say season 2, I think he looks a lot better.
A lot of lore things have changed or have been expanded on here. Baggy's character is just completely different. So yeah, I don't know what happened between the pilot and the release of the show where they just changed her so much. Yeah, I'll talk about it later, but she's very different. This is not a problem, and it wouldn't be a problem if Hazbin Hotel was a normal show for normal people. But the issue with the pilot being different from the show is that the pilot is technically canon, even though things are different. And the pilot is structured to be the prologue to the main story. It sets up the character dynamics for our main cast. It explains why Alastor is even there in the first place. He supplies Charlie with Husk and Nifty, who are the extra workers at the hotel. It even explains why the hotel is that stupid name. The pilot is the start of the story, but the pilot doesn't get readapted or remade for the show. The show just kind of starts, and it feels like it picked up right where the pilot was ending. It wasn't included in the official release, nor did they remake it, which some shows do. Viv has said that she has no plans to remake the pilot, especially now that certain ideas from it have been recycled into the show. So there goes that. This is part of the reason why even the beginning of the show feels off. It tries to catch you up, kind of. It's in the form of a shitty commercial Alastor whips up, which is intentionally supposed to be funny and already low-key kind of downplays the story. But aside from the opening that info dumps the lore, it feels like we just kind of get thrown into the story with no proper context. And the longer it goes on, it feels like the show we ended up getting wasn't exactly what some people wanted.
No, our shared problem of overpopulation in hell.
So before Hazbin Hotel, Viv made a webcomic called Zoophobia. It's a webcomic about a sanctuary of anthropomorphic animals and people who can shapeshift into animals. There was a subplot that she was introducing that revolved around hell as a setting, and there was a group of characters called the Demon Gang. The Demon Gang would eventually be repurposed into Hazbin Hotel. In a rare stroke of genius, Viv saw this and was like, you know what? This should just be its own thing. This new series she was dedicating time to would be more of an episodic, raunchy adult comedy. This was evident in the art she would post, where most of it depicted the characters engaging in mundane or silly activities. These artworks clearly showed that the characters were one big, weird, happy family. And I would argue this is kind of the aspect that a lot of people grew to really like about Hazbin Hotel. But over time, especially when developing the pilot, she would make a much bigger story revolving around these characters. As someone who used to be a fan, something I can attest to is how the characters were constantly changing depending on whatever she liked at the time, which again, fine, it's very human to do. I just do remember Baggy went through so many changes as a character. Like, her design changed so much. Angel Dust, from the beginning to what he is now, very different. Also, she has like a lot of grab bag OCs that were totally just made because she was obsessed with like a certain time period or a specific kind of aesthetic, and was like, here's this character. Like, that's just who she is. That's how she makes art. An issue that plagues her work to this day is her boredom for her own subject matter. I heard that this is an issue with Hell of a Boss, but I haven't watched it, so I can't speak on that. But it's an issue that immediately plagues Hazbin Hotel, because even from the very start, the show shoots itself in the foot with what it's trying to do. Okay, so one of the major differences with the show and the pilot is the reasoning behind exterminations. The pilot says it's due to overpopulation, but the show expands on the true reason why the angels are conducting these exterminations. Charlie is the daughter of Lucifer, the first fallen angel, and Lilith, one of the first humans. They were banished to hell after giving Eve the fruit of knowledge, which led to evil being created or something, and the reason the exterminations began was in retaliation against Lilith, banning all of hell to rebel against heaven. So basically, heaven is already set up to be an oppressive force that is subjugating hell through ethnic cleansing. Okay. Charlie goes to the Heaven Embassy, remember this for later, to talk to Adam. Yes, that Adam. The first man and the guy who was a dick to her mom. Adam, the first mortal man, is now conspiring with angels to wipe out other human souls. The narrative placed him in the position of power that sinners are automatically deemed to not even be worthy of. She tries to pitch her idea of redeeming sinners to him so that he can call off the exterminations. This feels like something that the writer should take pretty seriously.
I'm fucking Adam. I'm the original dick. All dicks descend from me. You think you want drummer dick? No way. I'm the dick fucking master.
Charlie tries to convince Adam of her plan, but this actually causes him to double down, saying that human sinners already got their chance and that there's nothing they can do. And, oh yeah, we actually just like killing them for fun. And because you even came to me with this dumb shit, we're gonna bump the extermination date up to 6 months from now, instead of a year. Bye. So yeah, these are the people that Charlie has to appease for the next 8 episodes. This is like if Wicked had Elvis sing The Wizard and I, and then immediately right after, she meets the wizard, and then she learns that the wizard sucks. And then the rest of the movie goes the same way. Okay, so even with the immediate threat that's been posed, maybe the show will be about Charlie and gang getting new patrons, finding out what they did to get into hell, and then maybe they can figure out a way to make up for their sin and redeem themselves. Charlie will have an ensemble cast of people to prove to heaven that sinners can change and be worthy of going to heaven. Right? I don't want to say Viv explicitly promised a different kind of show that we never got, but I do think that in the long run, having the show immediately focus on this sort of heaven versus hell overarching war narrative, it stunted the show by not giving enough light to the core conceit of the narrative, finding out what it means to redeem somebody. Charlie's goal is to prove that sinners can be redeemed, that they don't have to live in a place of suffering forever, and should be granted happiness and a peaceful life, and blah blah blah. But it feels like the show never properly defines what being redeemed even means. Like we as adults, assumingly, know what that word means. But the show itself never explains this idea of what it's supposed to mean within its own context.
Like in season 1, it is only defined by the objective thing that happens to you, which is getting to heaven. They never really focus on any of the other aspects of it, like in terms of the philosophical definition of it, at least not in a deep way. Like it's literally just like, okay, we gotta get these people to heaven. Like, damn.
I can describe Charlie's character to you, but I couldn't really tell you what her deeper goal is. I know she wants to redeem sinners. I know she believes that they can be good, and she loves her people. You know, these are her people. But aside from our main crew, who is shown to be somewhat fine, like relatively, we are given no reason as to why she believes this for the rest of hell. They're all portrayed to be degenerates or psychopaths. Why should Charlie save them?
I think this also illustrates my issue with the opening number Happy Day in Hell, because I feel like it could have been a very strong opener if it had taken tabs from other musicals. In order to explain why, I'll use Heathers as an example. Heathers' opening number is called Beautiful, and it is a perfect introduction to the world characters and themes of the entire story. The main character, Veronica, is a senior in Westerberg High. She laments about how all the kids she used to know used to be so good and pure and innocent, but something corrupted them along the way and turned them all into assholes. She knows that these people can be good deep down, she has seen it before, but something happened along the way that took that kindness and goodness away from them. Everyone at Westerberg are assholes, but there's a reason why they're assholes, and it becomes increasingly clear the reason why they're all mean to each other is because everybody is unhappy with themselves. The girls are constantly seeking validation from men, but they're getting creeped on. The guys are insecure and don't know how to express their emotions, so they resort to violence. Veronica sees that these people can be good, but because of the environment of Westerberg, it does not allow for them to. And it gets to the point that the students are so unhappy that they have to resort to looking up to the Heathers, who represent a paragon of perfection. I feel like they could have easily used this idea that sinners at their core are unhappy. Being in this environment will not facilitate any sense of improvement or care because it just doesn't allow for it, and that they look up to heaven as a sort of perfect ideal world where they could escape to and be happy. But it feels like Happy Day in Hell is beautiful if all you took away from the number was that all the students in Westerberg are assholes, and that's literally it.
We know she's lived here all her life and is used to the debauchery, but I feel like the show never delves deeper into why she loves her people so much. In fact, she seems to also be weirded out by their behavior. Even when posed with this exact argument, Charlie responds by saying,
Everyone makes mistakes.
this is already working off of an idea that sinners are unfairly sent to hell. I don't personally believe in corporal punishment, but we can't establish this idea that it's unfair when the show hasn't given us a reason to think this yet. I think what also doesn't help is that one of the core concepts of Hazbin doesn't get addressed at all until season 2, the human lives of the characters. One of the most interesting aspects of Hazbin, even back in the day, was that all of the characters were humans at some point, and they did something terrible to land themselves in hell. Also, their actions and the way that they died affected how they looked and what they would do in hell. Alastor has a whole radio motif because this is based on the fact that as a human, he was a radio show host, and he has like furry deer traits because the way that he died was that he was shot in the head in the middle of the night because he was mistaken for a deer. Vox was a TV show host who died from a TV falling on his head. That's why he's a TV head. Season 1 doesn't tell us these character backstories, which isn't the core issue. It's just that it doesn't even really address the fact that the characters are humans, like addressing the fact that they are humans who did something to earn their spot. So a lot of these visual traits about them feel more like aesthetic than anything else. This also kind of leads to this bigger issue I have with Vivzy's art, where she will actually have these really cool details about their character design, but because there's also all of these unnecessary details cluttered in with them, it's really hard to discern what is like a really well thought out motif in the design versus she just put that shit there for fun. Like, Pench's having eyes all over his body actually is a callback to the fact that in his human life, he was a coward who chose to look away. So now in hell, he has no choice but to look at people because he has eyes all over his body. That's cool. But we also see a lot of other characters who have eyes all over their body too, so it's like, what does it mean for them? Is it unique for them, or is it just a cool motif? I think the show is already off to a bad start by not establishing a better moral conflict for the protagonist to overcome. The idea that she's going to have to acknowledge that these people she wants to help are bad. We don't know the morality system of heaven or hell, so it makes it impossible to engage with the narrative when we don't exactly know what the show wants to say quite yet. This is why the show, jumping straight into the heaven versus hell thing, feels like a bad decision in the long term, because it feels like we missed an entire arc of character and world building before getting to this point.
It left no time to do proper world building for our characters and setting before the show had to immediately pivot into the heaven subplot.
It starts with sorry.
Season 1 can easily be split into two halves, the first being about hell and the second half being about heaven. The first half attempts to show how Charlie will go about redeeming sinners, while we also learn more about hell and the hierarchies within it. The second half is where Charlie will have to go to heaven to explain her cause to prevent the exterminations from happening. This could have worked on paper, but you have to remember that because we're essentially watching 20-something episodes worth of content being squeezed into 8, if it feels like a lot of the ideas were rushed or not fleshed out and were not fully realized, it's because a lot of the ideas were rushed and fleshed out. The biggest example of this is the V's, a group of overlords who are trying to sabotage the hotel. The leader of the group, Vox, is the media overlord who controls the media. He's taking advantage of the hysteria around the exterminations and using it for his own benefit. He sends in a spy to sabotage the hotel and get intel on them. And he also has a one-sided rivalry with Alastor. I wonder where that's going to go. Then there's Velvet, the social media overlord. She controls the social media. She's the backbone of the team. And she goes to an overlord meeting and calls them out for not immediately retaliating against the angels. What will come of this conflict? There's also characters like Mimsy or Cherry Mom who don't really serve much purpose other than to info dump or be side pieces to more central characters. This is unfortunate because these two characters have been a part of the main cast for a long time, especially Mimsy, who was originally a main character in the Demon Gang. But in the final product, she ended up being a character who could have been easily cut from the story, and it's actually kind of sad. In the episode where she shows up, she accidentally sends a bunch of loan sharks to the hotel and they start attacking it, so then Alastor has to like protect the hotel. It's kind of dumb, and she info dumps about Alastor's backstory, and it's like the way that this easily could have been replaced, like if you just have Angel bring in loan sharks because the previous episode he was fighting them off, and then have like Baggy or something describe Alastor's backstory. That's what they did in the pilot. There are characters introduced who are actually related to the conflict, but the ideas that they bring to the table don't feel well thought out. Carmilla Carmine is an overlord who's an angelic weapons dealer. The story makes a whole stink about how she secretly killed an angel without telling the public because apparently sinners have never been able to kill an angel before. Carmilla is a very weird character, mainly because she has the pieces to be interesting, but it never feels impactful because none of them ever come together. She refuses to go to war despite being an angelic weapons dealer, the one thing that would give sinners a leg up to defend themselves. She doesn't want her family to be put in harm's way, but then it's revealed she actually did kill the angel and did it to protect her family, so she is willing to fight. I guess. I get that she's willing to do anything to protect her loved ones, but she doesn't want to go to immediate war, but the extermination being bumped up to 6 months does make it more immediate, and when Velvet brings up the fact that her weapons are meant for war, she just doesn't have anything to say. She never faces consequences for lying about the angel thing, by the way. It just doesn't go anywhere. I was totally expecting some plot twist, like she was secretly working for heaven or something, and that's why she has all the weapons, but no, it's just kind of nothing. It's an idea that could have worked, but it doesn't feel fully realized. My friend kept calling her motivation merchant, which is so fucking stupid. The setting of Pentagram City isn't explained well at all. People hate on the show for having a very boring depiction of hell. It's essentially just an American city, but everything is red and people shoot each other. But in my opinion, I don't even necessarily hate the setting itself. I like the look of Pentagram City, and we do get the sense that it is a lived-in society. The actual problem is the world building sucks. Sinners can get killed, but if it's by normal means, they just regenerate, so they can only be permanently killed by angelic weapons. But you wouldn't know that unless you sought that information out yourself. It makes the whole conflict of sinners being killed feel kind of off, because sinners kill each other all the time. Murder is very normalized here. There's even a whole cannibal town full of cannibals. Like, it does make sense that angels being able to obliterate a soul and have them cease to exist is like a world-shattering act to commit. Like, I understand that, but none of the characters have any friends or family that were taken by angels either. So the conflict already doesn't feel that impactful, because it's something that happens in the setting, but none of the characters ever have to experience it nor talk about it much in terms of how it affects them. Overlords as a hierarchy is just not explained. They're a class of sinner that is very powerful. How they get powerful? As of season 2, we have a better idea of how they work, but some of it is still undefined, so even though it's a little interesting, it does kind of just make me tilt my head. Some overlords like Alastor seem to get their power from how much fear they inflict. Others like Vox get it from influence or notoriety. Some other overlords like Val gain power from making contracts and sexually enslaving the whole city. Apparently overlords have a general alliance with each other, at least enough to have meetings, and certain overlords are considered more powerful than others. I'll give the show credit that we get a better sense of how they work in season 2, but it's one of the aspects of the world that doesn't get introduced or explained, so we have no real reason to care about certain things, like why the overlords are so significant or how they necessarily affect hell's location. They're all supposed to be based off of different forms of art, and they all have their own like little design motifs. They all control certain districts in hell, but because the show never explains this, when they get introduced, it just feels more like a Vivzy OC showcase rather than actually showing how these figures dominate this setting. It also makes overlord dynamics like Alastor and Vox's feud not as impactful, or Alastor being gone for 7 years. Like, I remember when we first watched the show, I was just kind of like, why does that matter though? 7 years is not even that long. These are characters that live for hundreds of years. Like, why does this matter? There's a lot of characters and a lot of ideas that are fighting for attention, but can never fully attain it. There's only a few characters that I personally feel like get any progression or a conclusive payoff. A good example is Serpentious, a character that's actually from an earlier scrapped idea of Hazbin that's centered around superheroes and supervillains. He's a supervillain that nobody takes seriously. In the show, Vox sends him to spy in the hotel to get information, but once he's caught, he immediately gives up and apologizes. At first I thought this was a bit rushed, because it is, but I do think in the long run, it was for the best to have Penches be the first to be redeemed. The show does actually show him unlearning his bad behaviors. You start to realize as a viewer that he really isn't a bad person. Spoiler alert, when he does go to heaven, the show does portray the dichotomy of a reformed sinner now having to acclimate to being redeemed. It's one of the only times I feel like the show is actually exploring redemption. He's also very funny.
Nobody catch me. Damn it.
Another character who is related to the themes in a semi-decent way is Angel Dust. We already know he has a lot of issues which deter him from creating deeper bonds with the hotel crew, and because Serpentious becomes the new golden boy of the group, it leaves him feeling very insecure. He can never be perceived as a fully good person like Penches. We learn more about his struggles outside the hotel, specifically his struggles with being a sex worker for his boss Valentino, another member of the V's. I know I said the V's don't do anything, but that's only like 75% true, because Valentino does stay a consistent villain throughout this season. It's revealed that he owns Angel's soul as a part of their contract. We still don't know the full details of it, but we know that he holds immense abusive power over Angel. There's a scene in episode 4 where Angel is acting like his usual self, but once he gets a call from Val, his demeanor completely changes. Charlie realizes that whatever Val is doing to Angel is making it harder for him to participate at the hotel. So she takes it upon herself to confront Val and convince him to let Angel leave and get back to the hotel. This doesn't go well. It actually leads to the abuse getting worse for Angel, and Val forces him to make Charlie leave. Angel's not doing this because he doesn't like her, he's doing this for both of their own safety, which is a sign that Angel does actually care about others and will actively put himself aside to protect his friends. This is probably the closest the show gets to depicting a nuanced situation. It also serves as a lesson for Charlie, which could potentially shift her idea of what a redeeming quality looks like. She tried to do something good, and while it wasn't her fault, it ended up making the situation even worse. The end of the episode has Charlie apologizing and learning how to properly respect Angel's boundaries. Remember this for later. We also get to see Angel trying to better himself, or at the very least, show more care for himself and others. And he even gets to tell off Valentino at the end of the show. While his character arc is definitely not completed, this is one of the only times it feels like season 1 tries to give a good sense of payoff for one of its central characters.
And honestly, looking back, I do sense a wider connection with Angel to the theme of redemption, because while he feels outcasted in the hotel due to his insecurity about not being able to reach Charlie's standards and his jealousy towards Penchas, we see him sort of retreat back to his abusive situation, which I feel like the idea is that he does not feel like he is deserving of redemption and that he might as well just stay where he is. He literally cannot envision a better life for himself. I don't know if it's done super well, but I can sense that that is an idea being conveyed here.
Despite this, Angel Dust isn't perfect. Actually, I would go as far as to say is that he also is not that good of a character in this season. I ended up being like, okay, like, I see what they're doing with him here. Like, I was fine with him, but God, he was... How do I say this? He is very annoying for, like, the first half of the show. It's really annoying. I don't know. Ooh. Like, it really prevented me from liking this character for a good chunk of the show. Like, half of the things that come out of this character's mouth is sucking dick and cock. There's a gag where the characters are doing a show and tell, and for he forces them to watch a shitty porno he started. In comparison to the version of Angel in the pilot, the characterization in the show feels so flanderized. In the pilot, he was dismissive, he was an adrenaline junkie, and he was low-key offensive.
Don't get your taco in a twist, baby.
Was that you trying to be sexist or racist?
Whatever pisses you off more.
And in the show, they make the bizarre choice of making him the sole sex joke character. Like, he made sex jokes in the pilot, but in the show, it's like they took that one clip, you know, the one, and then just made his whole personality. The show does recontextualize this later by bringing up the fact that he is constantly being objectified and sexually abused. Thus, he feels that his only worth is his desirability. Thus, he uses hypersexuality as a defense mechanism. But I fear that the show mainly focusing on his sexual promiscuity takes away from his other struggles, like how he's generally an emotionally stunted asshole who closes himself off to others. I feel like it also inadvertently pushes this idea that him being sexual is, like, not great. Like, it's an unfavorable trait. And like, sexually harassing your friends is not a good thing to do. I'm not saying Angel had to be this perfect victim, but we can all admit that this is a very odd way to write a character who is a victim of sexual assault, no? I also think he just needed a few moments of downtime where we get to see him doing something that isn't just being horny or being abused. Like, I always think about this old piece of art that Viv drew years ago, where Angel is having a moment of peace to himself in his dressing room with his pet pig. Angel's job objectively sucks, but this artwork is one of my favorites because it shows a brief moment of peace where he can let his soft personality show in the privacy of his own room. In the pilot, he says he doesn't want to quit his dangerous lifestyle because people will think that he's going soft. This is kind of tackled in the show, but it comes off less like it's tackling all of his behaviors, and it only focuses on his drug use. It feels like an anti-drug PSA at some points. Also, because his character shift happens like 2 episodes after we learn about his problems, it does make his payoff feel rushed. One episode, he's getting blackout drunk at a bar, and the next, he's being a responsible bar buddy. We do feel for Angel due to his abuse from Valentino, but even Val as a character is very strange to me, more so due to stuff in the future, but we'll talk about it. He's supposed to be portrayed as this charismatic guy who uses power and manipulation to get people to do what he wants. That's fine, but I feel like the only way the writers could portray this was to make him talk in a sexy voice and sometimes have the cringiest dialogue ever known to man. His abusive tendencies aren't really portrayed with any sense of nuance or subtlety. Dude, the moment he meets Charlie, the princess of hell, he's immediately preying on her. Didn't Vox yell at him to not do this shit before? Like, this is fucking crazy. In episode 6, when Angel stands up to Val, he's literally talking out loud to a girl, trying to convince her to do sex work. And then there's another girl he's talking to, and he's literally yelling at her to get him a drink, and if she doesn't, he will fucking kill her. I get that there are people who act like this IRL, but it just makes it hard for me to take him seriously as a character sometimes. Instead of making me understand how someone like him could get away with all the shit that he does, I'm just watching the show and it's making me go, man, this guy isn't really charismatic at all. How is he getting any of these people in his camp?
To wrap up my thoughts about Angel Dust, I do want to talk about a bigger issue that I have with Hazbin Hotel and its messaging. Before you ask, we will talk about the storyboard artist in the second part of the video, so don't you worry. But for now, I do want to focus more on how Hazbin Hotel portrays sex. Specifically, that in my opinion, I think the show is very weird about sex. Generally, it presents sex as this weird, gross, taboo thing that people do, which is so strange because obviously with a character like Angel Dust, you are trying to be somewhat sex positive or at least sympathetic to people who are in that workplace. But like, you literally start the episode off by him showing them a porn and they're all like reacting as if it's gross and weird and like that's just a very odd way to start your episode about Angel specifically. Aside from that though, the way that the show portrays sex in general is just very strange. Like, it's either forced upon people, or it's weird, or it's predatory, or it's weaponized. Like, this is a repeating pattern in both seasons. Before you say, oh, well, the show's in hell, that's not really an excuse when your show is literally about deconstructing morality. And in order to deconstruct morality, you have to deconstruct the ideas and taboos around sex as well. I don't want to say anything about how Viv and her team view these things because they are very queer positive and sex positive. I do not think they properly deconstructed their own internal biases when presenting it within the show. Because if you're going to have a show that has a character centered around sexual assault, you just need to address your own feelings about sex in general. Then you end up having a scenario where two of your most flamboyant and queer presenting characters, Valentino and Angel Dust, are also presented to be the most hypersexual. And they're both on ends of the spectrum of being victims and perpetrators. Aside from one scene in season 2, we don't have any positive representations of sex at all. And that is a huge problem. Going forward, I hope the show gets a fucking grip on this, because the show is unintentionally saying a lot of things about these characters that I know the writers did not intend. And that's the problem.
Heaven is not exactly as carefree as you might think.
Charlie has become much more stressed out now that the extermination date is coming, so she calls up her dad, Lucifer. In the pilot, it's already implied that he doesn't believe in Charlie's dream, and he's been neglecting her, so it's safe to say that Lucifer is a little bit of a dick. But in the show, I guess not. Okay, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I don't like Lucifer, but you know who does? Vivzy does. Apparently he's her favorite character, which makes a lot of sense. You can tell the writers really want you to find him so adorable and so quirky, and I don't. I can't. It's just not my thing. God bless Jeremy Jordan's heart. He really is giving the performance of a lifetime, but I have a pet peeve with shows like this where they try way too hard to give characters likable traits. It feels very reminiscent of like the 2010s adorkable style of characterization. I think the biggest crime with him though is that he is a character who could have been way more interesting, but the show does not have the time nor the skill to make this happen. Charlie calls Lucifer to come down to the hotel so she can show him how it works and convince him that her dreams can finally be achieved and everything can work. The show implies that her relationship with him hasn't been the best. Oh wait, no, it's not even implied. They just straight up tell us that she has daddy issues like 5 fucking times. I really wish I could have used my brain for that, but I'm so glad the show took it out of my hands and used my brain for me. Thank you so much. By this point, the main cast has become way more comfortable with each other, but a lot of that bonding and development happens off screen, so it feels more forced than natural. It also helps that a lot of the character conflicts just get spoken out loud to us. The show does a lot of telling, but not a lot of showing. Stuff like Charlie's relationship with her dad is already hard to take seriously because the show immediately makes a joke out of it. To be honest, it becomes transparently clear that these jokes exist to make up for the fact that the writers had no time to properly build these ideas up or properly show them to you. This is one of the bigger issues with Hazbin in terms of its tone and writing, because like there's so many things that should be taken seriously and they just aren't. It makes it hard for you to pick and choose like what to get invested in, because even stuff that is taken seriously, who knows, at some point they might just let it go down the drain. Also, this is a nitpick, but I hate that they make a big fucking stink about Lucifer not seeing his daughter, yet when she calls him, he is pretty willing to call back and pretty willing to go down to the hotel, and he also only lives like an hour away. Like, you're telling me that this character has daddy issues, yet he literally just lives down the block? Like, that's fucking crazy. I'm not gonna say I'm an aficionado on daddy issues, but like, I don't know, man. Imagine being me and like, you grow up without a father and it doesn't bother you really because you live with your mom and your grandma and your mom is able to provide for you for all your life, so like it's not really a weird thing. But growing up, you never really have a connection with him because he moved on and married another woman and had kids with her and basically lives so many states away, so like you don't really see him growing up much, and he doesn't really call that much either, and you only really see him when you're like in middle school or something, and even then that's it. And he just kind of ghosts you for the rest of your life until you graduate high school. And then after you graduate high school, he calls you and says that I'm proud of you and you can do anything you want and don't let people tell you what to do. And then a year or two later, you get a phone call from his family and they alert you that your dad passed away. I didn't have an emotional connection to him. The fact that my biological father is just not on Earth anymore is something that is very, it's just something I remember every now and then. So I think I know a thing or two about daddy issues. Anyways, Charlie tries to convince her dad of her dreams, but he's still reluctant to support her due to his experiences as a fallen angel. He was the first to be banished into hell alongside Lilith, and ever since Lilith disappeared after the rebellion, he's been depressed. Or rather, this show's version of being depressed. I understand that the core of the arc is that Lucifer still loves Charlie, but has given up hope on saving hell, and Charlie will be the one to renew that hope. It would be a lot better if this episode wasn't so fucking meandering. Charlie brings Lucifer with the intention of showing him how the hotel works, but aside from pinches, she really has nothing to show for it. They fuck around for most of the episode, and then Charlie takes him to the balcony and is like, well, what do you think? As if she had actually shown him anything. There's also this annoying bit with Alastor and Lucifer. Oh my god, I can't stand it. I know y'all find it funny, you like it, whatever. I don't care. Alastor and Lucifer just start beefing for some reason. Alastor gets pissed that Lucifer doesn't recognize him, so then he starts trying to make Lucifer feel insecure about his role as a father in Charlie's life. Like, I know Alastor is doing it to rage bait. Alastor does not care about Charlie in that way. He's just doing it to piss Lucifer off, and I know that people find this funny, but I remember I just kept asking myself, why is this happening? I don't get it. Why should I care? I don't care if there's theories that Alastor and Lucifer have some sort of connection. I don't care. It's on the show. I don't care. Lucifer is like, Charlie, your endeavor to save these sinners is pointless because they're all terrible and cannot be saved. And heaven is not as good as a place as it seems. Which, fair point, honestly. He did try to help humanity and he was punished for it. And his consequence was an eternal reminder of all the worst aspects of humanity. So, I get it. Basically, he feels like Charlie will go through the same thing that he went through. And I don't think that this is a bad idea for a conflict, but it feels very Disney Channel-esque how it gets resolved. More than anything is a good song. I just don't feel invested in this father-daughter dynamic at all. Plus, it didn't really feel like he needed that much convincing. Oh yeah, when Mimsy brings in the loan sharks and Alastor starts statistically murdering them, Lucifer's like, hey, look at this, aren't sinners terrible? And then Charlie is like, well, at least Alastor cares about the hotel, and then just shames him for not believing in her. She doesn't even have to do anything to refute his claims. He just kind of starts feeling bad, and then is like, you know what, kiddo, you're right. I do believe in you, and I love you. Yeah. To wrap things up before the finale, I guess I'll talk about Alastor, because he is a character that, to this day, I have no clue what the writers are trying to do with him. I feel like by the end of season 2 whole seasons, I'm like, okay, sure, but even still, Alastor is one of Viv's favorite characters. People make fun of him for being this edgy DeviantArt OC, but you can't really use that as an insult because Viv herself not only knows this, but is proud of it. And that's fine. I'm glad she can have her cool edgy OC in her shit now. Like, that's good. The pilot gave us a pretty good foundation, but I have a feeling that something must have fundamentally changed about his characterization from the pilot to the final show. I'd argue something changed in between seasons, but that's my theory. So in the pilot, there is always this sense that you couldn't get a read on what he was thinking, nor what he was going to do next. That was the strength of his soft manipulation style. You could never fully trust him, but he had a charm to him that made it hard not to pay attention. His lackadaisical attitude towards the hotel gang was also just a really fun dynamic as well. He never showed outright annoyance, and if he did, it was very subtle. He treated everyone as if they were there to entertain him, which goes well with his reason for helping. But in the show, it feels like he lost all his whimsy and charm. The personality that Alastor had was always a mask, with the bright smile and the wide eyes included. But the whole shtick of "you're never dressed without a smile" act, the methodical mask that Alastor puts on, doesn't work in the show because Alastor's emotions are always so clearly on display. In the scene with Carmine, he asks if anyone noticed that he had been gone for 7 years, and no one seems to care. And it bothers him so much. There are several moments where he's clearly annoyed or pissy, which wouldn't be an issue if this didn't contradict the previous characterization. Alastor was so easily able to command the presence of a scene, but here it almost feels like he has to fight for it, like a child who wants attention.
I think this also has to do with the fact that the show just kind of lacks the dichotomy that existed in Alastor's character in the pilot. He could go from being a cheery, almost eerily happy person to immediately pivoting into being intimidating. This is the most evident at the end of the pilot when Serpentius tries to attack the hotel and he immediately decimates him and then immediately goes back to being happy. But like, that doesn't really exist in the show. They try to make him look intimidating, but it doesn't really work because that same dichotomy in his writing does not exist anymore. Like, I want to make it clear, I don't really care too much about him like aura farming or being scary. It's literally just how he's written.
This is what I mean when I say something feels like it fundamentally changed, because it feels like we missed an entire character arc between the pilot and the show. I don't even think the idea of giving Alastor more human flaws is a bad idea. I just don't think the show properly builds up to it. He suffers from the show constantly breaking the show don't tell rule. We're told a lot of things about him, but his behavior just doesn't line up with it. A lot of fun nuances from the pilot were just dropped, so it makes him feel very hollow. It would actually be interesting to see his lackadaisical, carefree, I do what I please attitude slowly degrade over time due to having to protect the hotel out of obligation. There is a scene where he tells Mimsy to leave if she's not interested in redeeming herself, so clearly he feels the need to protect the integrity of the hotel in some way. Again, the idea is there, but the pacing and general characterization this season just doesn't allow for it to flourish. So to be honest with you, I wasn't really disliking the show for the first part of its run. Despite the major missteps, I could tell that this was a labor of love, and it still felt earnest. Unfortunately, everything just starts to fall apart the moment that Charlie and Baggy go to heaven.
She was right, Sarah. She showed us the soul can improve.
They try to convince the council to stop the exterminations, and it doesn't go well. Okay, so first off, there's the council. The head of the council's name is Sarah, like Seraphim, haha. There was like this younger counterpart named Emily. Apparently, Sarah wanted the exterminations to be kept a secret from the rest of heaven, and I just don't understand why this is even a plot point. I don't understand why they would hide it from the citizens of heaven when the whole reason they're doing it in the first place was in retaliation to Hell's rebellion. It doesn't justify the killings, but I could totally imagine a sheltered angel who has only been taught Heaven's side of the story, assuming that Heaven was in the right to retaliate. This could lead to establishing the moral code of Heaven, which can properly be deconstructed and can properly emphasize the privilege that angels hold over sinners. It wouldn't mean that they're all evil, but that they are aware of a situation that they either may not agree with or turn a blind eye to. But even then, the reveal of the information doesn't actually lead to consequences for Sarah or any public outrage, so it just didn't matter. The main thing that frustrates me though is that the more we learn from the speakers of the council, the more this show just starts to genuinely fall apart. Charlie uses Angel as an example to show how much progress a sinner can make. The scene is fine. Again, it feels like a PSA for kids, but Angel ends up looking out for himself, for his friends, and sticking it to Valentino. So what now? What else does Angel have to do to get into heaven? This would go back to my original point, that the show completely ignores the fact that sinners are people who have committed a sin. His past actions are never addressed, so we can only judge the current Angel. This could be something that angels bring up, but they never do. So what is the criteria that the angels are using to get people into heaven in the first place? Well, I wish I could tell you, because it seems like none of the council members actually know what gets a person into heaven, like, at all. It's not even like, oh, we don't know how a sinner can redeem themselves. Like, no, they just don't know what gets a person into heaven, period. Why? Why don't any of the angels know? Why? It's not even like, oh, we know what it is, but we just won't tell you. No, like, they just don't know. So if heaven doesn't know, and Charlie doesn't know, then what are we doing? So when a human soul dies, they either get sent to heaven or to hell. Whether or not that system is fair is up for the show to decide and deconstruct why. But I feel like it's going to be very impossible for the show moving forward to deconstruct this when we don't even have a baseline morality system or a philosophy that Charlie and co must fight against. I think the show wants you to assume the moral philosophies of both of the environments, considering heaven and hell are just essentially polar opposites, but that's the problem. There does seem to be a criteria of what angels consider to be sinful behavior. Luke makes a homophobic comment to Angel does, so clearly, like, this matters. But without an established morality system for both heaven and hell, how can the show provide any meaningful commentary on this front? It doesn't help that the Hell is Forever reprise, while attempting to be a triumphant moment where the council can be called out for their hypocrisy, doesn't work because it's based on the idea that, oh, angels can do whatever and just go up to heaven, when that's just not true. Guys, the entire premise of the show is about shitty people who did shitty things in their human life and ended up in shitty hell. Sinners did do something to earn their spot. Sure, Charlie's gang is not as morally corrupt as the other characters, and it could be argued that they deserve a second chance, but I genuinely feel like this moment was thought of because they thought it would be so fucking cool, dude. And, like, we get to own it to the angel. But in the process, they kind of forgot what kind of show they were making. Heaven could easily throw these arguments in their face by reminding them that sinners did something bad to get sent to hell, and that just because Angel does something good now, that doesn't make up for the bad things that he probably did in his human life. But it's almost as if they just purposefully stunted the angels to make Charlie look more right, without actually writing any nuance into the story to make this believable. Oh, but don't worry, it gets even dumber, because Vaggie, Charlie's girlfriend, is revealed to be an angel.
In the pilot lore, Vaggie used to be a human sinner who died in 2014. I do remember she went through a lot of changes. I think the year that she died changed a lot, but by the pilot, she was cemented to be like a Melanie Martinez crybaby pastel goth Tumblr girl.
But yeah, her being an angel is a very new lore change, and I don't hate it, but the show does nothing interesting with it whatsoever. Okay, so basically she used to work for Adam as an executioner, meaning she has killed thousands of sinners, which means she participated in a genocide, the very thing that Charlie has been fighting against the entire time, and Vaggie was really ashamed to tell her. What would she think if Charlie knew? This is a serious situation. I hope the show takes it seriously.
Okay, but what if she was just named Vagina? I'm not joking, by the way. He literally says that he named her after Vagina.
I named you after the best thing ever, Vaggie.
Also, what's crazy about this is that, like, he corners her and, like, blackmails her into working for him so that her secret won't be revealed. But then he just blurts it out anyways, and Vaggie doesn't even need to, like, act like she needs to cover up for it. Like, they literally set up a conflict, and it just doesn't go anywhere again.
Okay, so people have said it's weird that Vaggie would hide this because Charlie literally defends a society of cannibals and murderers, which, sure. My critique is that Charlie is never really shown to have any prejudice against angels specifically, despite her desire to liberate her people from the persecution of angels. She's not only shown to be perfectly fine with interacting with them, but she actively tries to appease them too. There's no acknowledgement of their privilege, no jealousy or resentment. These aren't even feelings that she has towards Vaggie either. Charlie's more so upset with the fact that Vaggie just lied over anything else. The conflict also resolves pretty quickly too, which, again, I'll give the showrunners some slack. There wasn't any time. The heaven shit, that was just bad. Like, that's just poorly thought out. Vaggie goes to convince Carmine to give them weapons and fight against heaven. This scene is really weird. It feels like the payoff to an arc that the show just did not do any work to commit to. We get this song with Vaggie and Carmine in episode 3, where they are immediately parallel to each other, but I couldn't parse an immediate reason as to why. Is it because they're both devoted to the people they love? That's a very flimsy parallel to make, especially since the story doesn't really focus on them for most of it. Is it because they're Spanish? It made me theorize that Carmilla was actually secretly an angel just like Vaggie, but that doesn't seem to be the case either. I think the writers just thought that having Carmilla be Vaggie's mentor would make theoretical sense, but there's not much else to it. Also, this scene has the biggest plot hole in the show. Just listen to me. Listen to me here.
Okay, so basically, Carmilla informs Baggy that angelic weapons can actually harm angels. And she's like, did you know that angels could be harmed? And Baggy says, no. But the show contradicts this because in the flashback during episode 6, when she's an executioner, we actually see Lute, I'm assuming, use her angelic sword to slice off her wings and impale her eye out. So Vaggie knew good and well that angelic weapons could harm angels, so why doesn't she know here? Like, she acts as if this is a big surprise. Now, you could say, oh, but they didn't know that sinners could do it, but that's really dumb, because they literally leave their weapons in the corpses of sinners. They just leave their angelic weapons free for the taking. And Carmilla explains this away as, oh, sinners wasn't really rushing to try and fight an angel. But, like, why not? Viv has a Blue Sky post where she tries to explain this, but, like, basically it just amounts to angels being too stupid to realize their own rules could work against them. It's just a bad idea. Like, it's just a bad idea that they did not think out fully and did not expect people to ask questions about. Also, before I talk about the finale, I have to mention that during it, Vaggie and Lute have a fight, and Lute gets trapped under some rubble, but she literally like escapes the rubble, but her arm is stuck under it, and her arm gets ripped off, meaning that angels can't be harmed by things that aren't angelic. So again, the logic of the show makes no sense.
I can't even overlook this as a minor problem because the entire conflict revolves around this central point. Carmine hiding her angel murder was made to be such a big deal, and it hinges on the logic that nobody knew sinners could harm angels, even though the angels just leave their weapons in the bodies of dead sinners all the fucking time. Did they think that nobody would pick them up? Are they actually just dumb? The finale is mid. Well, actually, it's not mid, because mid would imply it's average. It's actually subpar. Alastor tries to fight Adam and fucking fails because he's a fucking fraud who fucking sucks. Lucifer comes in to save the day. I don't know why he waited until this last moment where his daughter got fucking beat up so bad, but okay. Adam gets defeated and says the worst dialogue you've ever heard in your life, and then he just gets killed off as a joke. This is so funny because this is supposed to be used as the catalyst for Lute's arc in season 2, but like, how can you make me take this seriously when the guy she's mourning over was killed like this? Like, that's so fucking weird. The only character who gets a good payoff is Serpentius because he actually sacrifices himself to save his friends, and it feels like a payoff for his character that makes sense because he's been acting more caring and valiant for his team. And then the show kills him off as a joke, and then the characters all start like mourning him seriously, and like, it's just the weirdest emotional whiplash I've ever experienced in my life. What am I supposed to be feeling here? What am I supposed to What am I supposed to feel? Weirdly enough, when he dies, he gets sent to heaven, which means he got redeemed. How did he get redeemed? Okay, we do know how he got redeemed, like now we know, but you have to remember that the angels don't know how this happens, therefore we as the audience don't know. So when I got to this point at the end of season 1 with my friend, both of us were just kind of like, why? How? Also, we have to remember that part of what got him up to heaven was him getting murdered. So, like, did the show just inadvertently justify an executioner murdering a sinner? When me and my friend hit the credits, I felt so tired. I was over it. Like, there were some things I liked, but there was nothing I could fully latch onto or fully engage with. Like, it was just so, oh my god. And I didn't even think the show was that bad until, like, the last few episodes. And everything just kind of, like, it all came crashing down. It was just so tired. So tiresome. Good for Spindlehorse, though. Good for them, I guess. Season 1 was made from a place of uncertainty, and a lot of it feels fundamentally broken. Even if they gave the characters more screen time or explored their troubles in a deeper and more nuanced way, they would still have to address the issue of the premise. The show had an interesting theme, but it ended up becoming secondary or even tertiary due to what the team decided to prioritize. It all just feels like setup so that maybe later they can flesh it out. So nothing feels like it has any immediate impact just yet. Yet for a season that was made to be a contained story, not much about it gets a satisfying payoff or conclusion. For me at least, a narrative works best when everything can come full circle, when ideas and themes come together at the end to give the story a more cyclical feeling. It gives it a sense of wholeness. But Hazbin Hotel Season 1 doesn't have this.
This is mainly due to the fact that Season 1 sets up a lot of things, but none of them ever get followed up on or expanded on. It's like how Carmilla and Vaggie are set up to be parallels, yet they are not the focus for the rest of the season, nor do they get any other moment before the finale where we get to see them more as characters or see more implications with their connection. Then you have the V's, who aside from Valentino, those characters get set up, but then also just do nothing by the end of the show. So it kind of makes it feel like their inclusion feels very off and doesn't belong in the story. And then you have conflicts that are set up only to immediately be resolved in the same episode or just dropped.
The show's tone and humor is also really bad. I could harp on about the cursing because it is an issue, but the main issue that I have is that it actively takes away from any sincerity the show wants to have. Charlie is depicted as this overly earnest and kind character, but it feels like even the show doesn't take her seriously. I understand that's where some of her humor derives from, because I am a fan of character-based humor, where the jokes derive from the unintended behavior of a character, but because she spends most of the show bumbling around and doing trust falls, it stunts her from actually getting any closer to figuring out how to redeem sinners, when the answer is pretty obvious to us as a viewer. Parts of the story that aren't well constructed or well thought out also just get reduced to jokes. It's almost as if the writers are going, yeah, this is pretty stupid, isn't it? As if that'll make up for it. It also removes any tension or impact the story could have, because there's always a sense of the writers thinking of something funny to do with it, but not actually accounting that with the rest of the story.
For example, in the confrontation scene with Baggy and Carmilla, Carmilla points out that Baggy's an angel, and Baggy's like, how do you know that? And she's like, oh, well, it's because you have an X over your eye, duh. And it's like, was that ever established in the show? I don't think the show ever established that that's like a trait that angels have. And then later, when Carmilla explains that, you know, anyone could just harm an angel if they have an angelic weapon, Maggie's like, wait, that's so obvious. How come no one has done this before? And it's like, yeah, Maggie, how come no one has done this before? I wonder why.
As of season 1, it didn't feel like the characters learned or changed much, aside from a few, nor was the show able to establish its core dilemma well enough. So while it's unfair to assume season 2 couldn't be able to fix these issues, you can't really blame me for going into next season with a lot of skepticism. I'm just not a fan of media that has to wait till seasons down the line to actually get to what it's supposed to do in the first place. It's like when a video game is released as a buggy, unfinished mess and gets patched for a year until it's finally complete. This is not Spindlehorse's fault fully, and I'm very proud of the work that they were able to do, but if Hazbin's going to continue, they're going to have to improve on these faults, because the last thing I would want is another experience where I get my hopes up only to be disappointed.
I think the biggest disappointment overall is that anything I remotely liked about the pilot, it feels like the show just did not take into consideration. And I'm not even just talking about the original characterization and the original lore. I am mainly talking about the writing, because the pilot has issues. Like, don't get it twisted. It's not perfect, but I think looking back, there was so much to appreciate about it because of how it was able to nail down its characterization and get across all of these character dynamics and the vibe of the series in under 30 minutes. Like, that's very impressive, even with all the other issues. That's such an impressive feat. And the show barely does this over its 8 episode run. Arguably, it kind of doesn't do it over its 16 episode run. So, like, what does that say about that original pilot? What does that say about the show? I mentioned this in my main review, but I think what's crazy is that they literally said that they wanted this season to feel like a standalone piece of television without any other season like accounting for it, because they did not know if they were getting a second season. But you wouldn't really know that just from watching it, because it feels like they're trying to do so many things all at once, and nothing feels like cohesive. It doesn't feel like a cohesive narrative with an ongoing theme that is strung throughout all of these pieces and these plot points and these characters. Which is why it's so baffling to hear that this was their version of a contained story. Season 2, in my opinion, is a much better attempt at that, even if all the issues are still present. And one of the more disappointing things to me is that even though people have issues with Vivy Pop as an artist and as a person, what I remember liking about her art as a kid was that it was very expressive and you could just feel so much from her individual artworks just from looking at them. This is why I made a point to even mention this at the beginning of the video, because despite this being a project that is also made with a lot of love, it's so like scatterbrained and cannot focus on any singular thing that you can't really feel that love from anything in particular. You know, it's why I said I feel like she is very good at focusing on one idea and just committing to that idea throughout the entire thing. You see that in season 2, but even then, you start to realize that the things that the show is trying to say, anyways, may not be that deep or meaningful at all. But let me not get ahead of myself because this is where this video will end, unfortunately. I have good news and bad news. This was going to be a much longer video, but I had so much trouble making this first half of it. My computer would not export it. I had to get help from a friend to export the video. So I had made the executive decision to split it into 2 parts. But the good news is that I already have the script written for everything, so once this is uploaded, I will be working on part 2 of this video where I will go way more in depth on my feelings on the series and these characters and this world. Like, I made this just to clear my bases for season 1, but the real reason I'm making this is to talk about season 2, and that is where I'm going to really go in depth about like the production and all the other stuff I've learned while doing research for this video. So this is kind of just a precursor. This is a precursor for the actual video I want to make. I hope this is good. I hope I added something to the conversation because I feel like I just kind of reiterated things that have already been said. But hopefully this is fine, and please like the video, please share it because I really, really want to talk about season 2, and I really want to talk about that TV guy. So yeah, I'll see you then. Bye.